my question to you guys now is just like, okay, you've got these folks that they're executing their plan, they're getting their body weight up, right? They're doing everything that they're supposed to do. What do you guys see sometimes as red flags? Like, okay, you know what? We've got the body weight going up. You're meeting the things that I wanted you to do, but this is a red flag. That's a red flag. You know, like one of the things that I like to do is I like to kind of get some periodic physique photos, you know, usually when they're kind of coinciding with milestones. You know, okay, we put on 5 pounds here. Let's get some good physique photos. If it's a competitor, let's get the front symmetry, back double bicep, you know, kind of side chest. Let's see what you think, what we're looking like. Then we'll kind of like continue on, you know, or sometimes it's like they get lost in their bulk and they've put on 7, 8 pounds. Well, still, let's get some pictures, you know. And if I don't like what I'm seeing, you know, it's kind of like the body fat is going on really unevenly. You know what I mean? I'm seeing it all on their midsection, or, you know, all on their right in the love handle area. I'll be like, you know what? Let's slow down here a little bit. Maybe let's use a little mini cut bridge. You know, to use that term from our podcast, mini cuts. You know, not so fast. Maybe we can get Steve to link that in there. You know, that's kind of a red flag for me. I don't like what I'm seeing here. You know, the way this is going. What are red flags that you guys see? Brian, how about you?
I think, yeah, what you said, I think is definitely a good point. I mean, especially if their body fat's, like if you've run a fat loss phase with them in the past and their body fat distribution is less favorable at a given weight on the way back up, that can be a red flag of potentially maybe going a little bit too fast. You know, I do lean on performance to a large extent, but I think if someone's in a surplus, but they're not like trending up in terms of performance over time, that's rarely is it because they need more energy. You know, it's like it's a rarely a caloric issue and more like a programming and fatigue management side of things, which obviously, you know, calories play a role in both of those. But usually the manipulations I make at that point are on the training front. But, you know, in terms of, you know, photos, I think, yeah, every month or two in the off season, I think is good. You know, I just had an athlete today ask me like, how routinely should we update photos in the off season? And like, sometimes it's really hard to see, like, especially if you're, you know, a more advanced athlete, like you're really not going to see the difference until you cut back down to a significant degree. You know, your fuller states may feel slightly more full, but comparing two sets of photos, it can be harder. It's kind of like the paper towel effect on the way down with fat loss. It's like each pound is going to have a larger visual impact. Mm-hmm. On the way up, it's kind of the opposite. Like each additional pound, it's like it has less of a visual impact once you get past a certain point. And so, which I think has its perks too. Like once you get to a point where you've put on some body fat and, you know, let's say you still have 5 pounds of, you know, runway to work with, and, you know, each of those pounds, it's like it doesn't have a huge visual difference. Like I know for me, like going from like 215 to 220, like I feel like I look the exact same, you know? Mm-hmm. So I think that's, yeah, what you said, I think is kind of the big thing. Like if it's an issue of like degree of surplus, you know, if they're kind of gaining roughly at a, you know, within a weight range that we want, but they're looking, you know, like fat distribution is less favorable, I might pull back a little bit further.
Alberto, is there anything else that you might delve into? Like, let's say things are not looking like you want them to, or you're seeing other red flags. Do you start diving into anything else? Like, what's training looking like? You know, are you pushing hard enough? Do you ever start delving in more layers underneath there when you see red flags?
So the visual red flag for my competition athletes is going to be a little bit different, because like with them, and honestly, it's strictly business because we have the contest weight and we're basing our decisions around that. So it's easy to stay objective. It's like, oh, okay, you know, I don't like my love handles. It's like, oh, it's like, whatever, dude, we'll be fine. And usually with him, it's quite easy to to relay that message. It's usually sent over a little bit more sensitive than whatever, dude. But with the casuals, like at the end, it's like a lot of this is just having them look at this is what they signed up for initially. So with them, I'll definitely, like if I think there's a little bit more to get out of this gaining phase, but they're not comfortable going beyond where we're at right now. Like that's okay. We'll get it next time. And they might need to lose that fat to see that. Oh, okay, wow. Like this is like my VMs look totally different. Okay, yes, like it was because of what we did on the gaining side. So with him, there's a little bit more leeway, right? Because the other ones they just want to do better on that stage. So it's much simpler in some ways. The biggest red flag I see is just like the loss of focus, just like with a fat loss phase. It's like with him, it's like maybe they're adhering a little bit less. Like, they're not handling social situations that were coming up as well as they did initially when it was exciting and new. Same thing with the gaining phase. Like sometimes, it's like adherence, and that can look many different ways when it comes to gaining. They're not eating enough. They're eating too much, right? Like that can happen because it's a gaining phase or whatever. Like that happens quite frequently. We're about to cut anyways. So yeah, it has to do with that, and that is just something that the longer you do this, your ability to focus on the task at hand it gets better, and you can do it for longer periods of time as a bodybuilder. So yeah, that's why for my beginners, it's like 6 months, like that's really all we need usually when it comes to gaining, because that's enough to elicit a positive response to your physique. Like we can most likely be able to say like, okay, that was pretty unanimous. It changed, and then we can add some texture in there and like, hey, here's a cutting phase. So yeah, people just kind of get bored.
Yeah, the loss of focus. That's a good. That's a good point that you brought up. Because people, when they're in their gaining phases, and their stomachs are full a lot of times,
Mm-hmm.
They just tend to neglect things like, when is the last time that you ate a vegetable or a fruit? When was the last time that you actually felt hydrated and your piss was yellow, was clear instead of yellow, things like that. Those are kind of the things that I'll start delving into. If I'm not liking, kind of what I'm seeing, it's just like things are not, the parts that I want to look bigger are not really looking all that much bigger, and the parts that we really don't want to look softer are kind of starting to look soft. I'll start kind of delving into things like that. And even sometimes training, believe it or not, will kind of start to get a little bit neglected. People will kind of start kind of going through the motions, and they'll be just like, okay, well, you know what, I've got 3 sets of 12 on this movement for the last 2 weeks. It's fine to get 2 more weeks at 3 sets of 12, or something like that, just some sort of a lackadaisical approach to their training, and I do kind of sometimes insist. It's like, you know what, I want you to send me the last set of this, and this. I want to see it, and better yet, have your friend do it that doesn't know, when you're not paying attention to the camera. I want to see what that looks like, when you're not having the camera on, just kind of things like that I kind of really like to kind of start peeling those layers back, and I'm kind of not liking, kind of how things are going.